Hello, Cynthia,
Mm.
and welcome.
Hi, Sheila. Such a pleasure to be talking with you today.
I am so looking forward to this
Mm.
conversation. It's an opportunity to dig deep into the nature of reality, consciousness, altered states, and of course, sleep paralysis as well. So this should be an interesting one. I'm
Yes.
I'm I'm going to start by introducing you to listeners. And I'm here today with Cynthia Sue Larson, and she's the best-selling author of several books, including The Mandela Effect and Its Society, Quantum Jumps, Reality Shifts, and High Energy Money. Cynthia has a degree in physics from UC Berkeley, an MBA degree, a Doctor of Divinity, and a second degree black belt. Cynthia is founder of Reality Shifters, first president of the International Mandela Effect Conference, the managing director of Foundations of Mind, and the creator and host of Living the Quantum Dream
Mm.
podcast. She's been featured in numerous shows, including Gaia, the History Channel, Coast to Coast AM, and the BBC. Cynthia reminds us to ask in every situation, how good can it get? I love that. Uh, Subscribe to her monthly e-zine at her Reality Shifters website. Wonderful. And thank you again.
My
Um,
pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, great. I'm going to start off with some questions looking at reality shifts and quantum consciousness, if that's all right, just to get us going and to kind of starting to look at exactly what is reality. So, Cynthia, then, from your perspective, what is a reality shift and can we shift
Mm.
realities without realizing it?
Yes, the way I define it or describe it, it's my description for the last 26 years or so. It's just a reality shift is when something appears, disappears, transforms, or transports, or it could be a change in the way we experience time. The way I look at it, it also includes things like spontaneous remission, because that's like the disappearance of something that was there, maybe a broken bone fixed, cancer gone. It also includes synchronicities. A lot of people don't see it that way, but the way I've been tracking this phenomenon for 26 years with the monthly reports from around the world, I'm noticing, yes, this is what it looks like to me. And to answer your question, can everyone experience it? Yes. I think people more frequently experience it than they're equipped to be able to put the experience in a memory organizational system. Usually it's sort of one of those mind-blowing moments, like what just happened here? And then yes, they had something to do with it. That when I interview people who send the firsthand reports to me, I don't have a system where they just type it in on the website. I interact with them back and forth, asking, what were you feeling? What were you thinking? So there's an interview process to the reporting. So, in other words, it's very significant to me to see the pattern of how these things have been happening over 26 years or so since the late 1990s. And then with these monthly reports showing also the geographic location, it's a database. So I do not consider this some random hobby thing I've been doing. I consider it an extremely important contribution to humanity to be able to look and see this is where these things have been occurring. This is what people are noticing. And it's a huge body of a wealth of free information at realityshifters.com. It's on the Your Stories pages, but also in the monthly newsletter. So it's really fascinating and wide open for the public to view. And then when you view it and you start reading it, be prepared that this may happen to you. If you're wondering, well, how does this happen? Reading about it helps your mind start understanding how to categorize these experiences. Also, I believe for a variety of reasons, it invites these experiences. So, sort of a twofold situation, which is a good one when you keep asking good questions that you wish to live the answers to, like adding how good can it get to everything you're contemplating.
So, what does reality shifting have to do with timelines? I get the sense that they are deeply embedded and interwoven. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes, timelines are human mind's way of trying to sort out what's going on when I see something that appeared, disappeared, transformed, transported, so forth. It's almost easier for us to grasp an explanatory process and then to say, okay, it's as if there's another timeline. It's as if there's another reality, which happens to correlate strongly with one of the ways of interpreting quantum physics. So I frequently, because of my physics background, I'll look at quantum interpretations, which are not decided either. There's no definitive answer as to which quantum interpretation is correct. In other words, are we living in a multiverse? Are there really many worlds? Maybe. Or is this a holographic universe where everything's enfolded and there's the enfolded order and the explicate order? Maybe. Or is it a transactional handshake between past and future selves? Maybe. Yes, yes, yes. Maybe all of the above and more. So when we start looking at all of these interesting physics hypotheses, then one of them can be a timeline idea. And to me, it has a lot of continuity there. So if you, for example, if you recognize Cynthia, was thinking about something, and as I was thinking this, I changed my mind, or I had a very strong feeling related, like for my, here's an example, my front silk window curtains shade. It's like curtains that are silk. I unfortunately decades ago washed them in hot water in our own washing machine stupidly. They shrank. They never did quite fit the same way for decades. One day during the pandemic, I was just looking at the gap there in the window and thinking, gosh, it would be nice if it was the full size. I wish it covered the whole window properly. That would be nice. Unbeknownst to me, my husband was thinking the same thing that same day. The next morning, I woke up and I was so annoyed because that front window shade didn't fit. It was on two rods, and now it was drooping like by an inch and a half. And I was so upset, so annoyed. Like, now look what happened. And then I realized, wait a minute. Oh my gosh, that's what I was wishing for. So a timeline gives us an explanatory process by which we can say, there was a timeline where I never did shrink that thing in the hot water, and now it fits like it never shrank, because that's what it looks like. It's back to its pre-shrunk, like I never did that stupid thing of washing them in hot water. Yeah, who does that? Okay, well, anyway, I did that. So it's hilarious. So that could possibly explain it. And then my little mind can wrap myself around the idea. Okay, so I just jumped to a reality where that never happened and everything else looks like the same. That's the weird part. Like all the other decisions somehow match except for that one. I guess I'm in that one unlikely universe where that's true. And
Great. Give us some examples of reality shifts, maybe collective or mass reality shifts, if you've got any.
oh yeah. Okay, now there's a term for this one. This is called the Mandela Effect. And if people look it up, which they usually do, they want to see what's the official definition. It's going to be different than what I say. I in my book, The Mandela Effect and Its Society, I call it the Mandela Effect. I describe it as collective alternate memory. That's not what you're going to see if you go to, I know, if you go to Wikipedia, you'll see, I don't want to say what you'll see. I just, because they're jumping to a conclusion. If you read what they say, then you'll say, oh, they're assuming something here, aren't they? That's what Cynthia said they were going to do. That's right. So instead of assuming anything, I'm saying it's a collective alternate memory. We're staying with the mystery of it. Okay, it's collective because a group of people specifically remember something quite identically for no apparent reason. In America, we have lots of logos and lots of products, and so maybe those are not good examples for the international audience. One of them is pretty famous, though. We have a company called Fruit of the Loom, and there are T-shirts. Maybe it's not well known overseas, but there's a group of fruit in the logo, and a lot of people remember the group of fruit also had a cornucopia, which is very symbolic for America because we have a holiday called Thanksgiving, which features prominently a cornucopia. And when children are learning about this Thanksgiving holiday, usually the first place they'd see the cornucopia is on the underwear, the T-shirts, on the logo with the cornucopia that used to be there, that a lot of us specifically remember being there. Not a plate, not a dish, not a bowl, Nothing like that. We remember the fruit exactly the way it is, and then behind it, this curved basket shape, very beautiful, swirling kind of a curving shape form to it. Very beautiful. And that's what we remember. But why do we remember that? So there's some questions that come up in this whole thing. Okay, now if people didn't look up Wikipedia and they're troubled, what did she mean? Okay, Wikipedia used to say, and hopefully at some point it won't, it would say collective misremembering, collective false recollections, like confabulation, these kinds of things. So in other words, they're attributing a cause rather than describing it as the phenomenon that it deserves to be honored as. We don't do this with other things. If we wish to scientifically study them, we don't put some sort of a description right on the thing that we're studying. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So it's fascinating. Anyway, yeah.
What about the Mandela effect? How about that as an example? Perhaps you can go into why it's called the Mandela effect in terms of reality shifting.
Yes. Well, okay, this gets into I'll start with Art Bell on his he had a show called Coast to Coast originally, and when he was a late night radio star, and this I think he's well known around the world. He would talk about strange things like ghosts and telepathy and UFOs and that kind of thing. And one of the conversations he brought up on the air had to do with the fact that people were telling him that it's kind of weird. It's like Nelson Mandela was dead, but now he's alive again. And that kept coming up again and again. And once it got talked about on the radio, more and more people would send in faxes. Back when there were faxes, they would phone, they would write in and tell Art Bell about this. And aside from the Art Bell Coast to Coast, nobody else heard about this until a woman named Fiona Broome attended Dragon Con. It's a conference about science fiction and stuff. And just backstage, just talking with friends, they were noticing, like, isn't it kind of weird that Nelson Mandela is alive? Like, I thought he died. And they were agreeing, like, that's kind of weird and kind of cool. And what is this? I don't know. It's a Mandela effect. Sometimes this happens. Someone that you think died isn't dead. And in this case, somebody that they remembered. They And then this is where the term picked up a lot of popularity. And this is about 20 years ago now. So that's where finally it got traction in the public domain. So people started talking about this Mandela effect and noticing it is weird that I'm one of those people that remember he had died. I don't remember quite why, but he was imprisoned on Robben's Island. I remember there was some weird political thing with his wife Winnie that she was trying to justifiably gain access to his beautiful estate, his possessions and his things that mattered to her, and the government was not allowing her access. I remember there was some kerfluffle over that. I remember big recognition for what Nelson Mandela had done, what he stood for. Such a good person. So for me, it was a very powerful memory. Sometime in the 1980s, and since then, I've noticed a lot of people have that shared collective memory. Something happened some people say 1987, that he had been incarcerated and died, but now he's alive again. He went on, of course, to become the president of South Africa. And in my book, The Mandela Effect and Its Society, I include a lot of his quotes because I'm glad he's the one that we named the effect after. I previously had noticed Dr. Larry Hagman. So it's the first person I've ever written about. He was in my book, Reality Shifts, as having been dead and then alive again. So if you want to give credit to the first person in a book, that's Larry Hagman. I'd vote for Nelson Mandela. No offense to Larry Hagman. I know he's a great guy. I've heard from a friend of his, and he's like, oh, what a good guy. But it's so much better when you have someone like Nelson Mandela who's standing for sovereignty, for freedom, for respect of ourselves, and that we can live together peacefully. I love what he stands for. So for me, that's a big part of the message of the Mandela effect itself, and he rightfully deserves to be the person I think that we're associating it with.
Great. And I mean, this is shifting gear a bit, but would you say that any of this is linked to alternate dimensions or different dimensional perspectives?
Actually, absolutely. And again, this gets into the physics again. And I think this part's fascinating because when you recognize I'm following the research of some I think going back 7 or 8 years now. In 2017, there was a paper that was noticing that humans think in 11 dimensions, usually 7 dimensions routinely. Then our brain and our mind is equipped, and they noticed this with mathematical models that they were observing it with and noticing. So the dimensionality, let me slow down and start over. People are like, what does she mean? Okay. One dimension is a point. It's just like a little tiny dot. 2 dimensions is a straight line. So if you remember your geometry from mathematics, that's what we're talking about. There's a book called Flatland that gets into this whole flat world. Like, what if everything lived on a piece of paper? So instead of our 3 dimensions, it's like this flat land where you've got squares, circles, and lines and dots. And from we have a higher dimensional view of flatland. We can look at that piece of paper. Like if I hold up a piece of paper and say like, okay, here's flatland, and the square and the circle and the dot are here. I can see them. And if they play hide and seek from each other, they're hiding. But I can see everything all at once because I'm in a higher dimensional perspective. And I think that's one of the easiest ways to start feeling like, oh, I get it. That's what's going on with these dimensions. Yes, it is. And so our brains, our minds are geared to put these collections of ideas into groupings that we can see above it, above it, above it. And we gain that access through meditation by being the observer of our thoughts, recognizing the first order would be like, okay, these are my thoughts and feelings. This is me. But then if you meditate long enough, then you can step back, take a deep breath and say, okay, Cynthia's having these thoughts and feelings. Notice I'm saying Cynthia. This is a technique of Iliism in psychology where you're one level up. So it's a dimensional level of awareness. I'm seeing it all at once. Cynthia's feeling very sad and depressed or stressed right now. Like, oh, that makes sense because look at what's happening. And so from my higher dimensional viewpoint, I see the whole thing all at once. I see this is just a passing thing. Cynthia will get through this. So it's the benefit of meditation is to lift yourself out of your issues. So yes, is this phenomena that we're looking at? Yes, it is related to this. In my book, Reality Shifts, I show a picture of a rose going through a flatland page. And I say, okay, now if there is a dimension, like right now, we can see a pen and we can see I'm holding up a Post-it pad. And we can imagine I'm not punching the pen through. But if I did punch it right through, the people on flatland would be noticing, okay, it looks like something's starting off like a little dot. Like, oh, here's a dot, our friend dot. Wait, now it's a circle. Now it's a hexagon. And then as it's a big pen comes through, it's like, oh, now it's got some weird thing on the side. They'll see something's changing as the pen goes through the page, and then poof, it's gone. So it's acting like a UFO, like how to create a UFO in flatland. Just be a higher dimensional being. And that's a big clue as to what's happening with these reality shifts where things appear, disappear, transform, transport. So I can see that as an extremely viable explanation for how all of this might be occurring, including how there are changes in the experience of time, time is another dimension. So all these things, as soon as you recognize there's consciousness at these higher levels of a dimensional conscious agency, then we've got a definite extra situation going on here where consciousness itself can be playing with us, sort of hiding something in our house that appears, disappears, moves around. Like, what the heck? There's nobody here but me. Do we have ghosts? What's going on? Or it could just be consciousness. And some of us have this I have weird stuff like that happen to me. So if people relate to that, I know that sounds pretty weird, but it can definitely happen.
That leads me into a discussion around sleep paralysis, and I'd love to get your thoughts really in terms of the potential, let's say potential relationship between sleep paralysis and engaging with alternate dimensions. I mean, we know that sleep paralysis can involve entities, being in different environments, receiving messages, downloads. A whole range of phenomena can happen during sleep paralysis. And we know that there's this very clear sense that one is awake, and we can have a discussion about what that awake means in terms of reality. But I'm just right now, I'm just thinking about, what do you think? Could we be accessing a different dimension during sleep paralysis?
Yes, to me it makes sense as to why some of our dreams don't map on, like it's hard to convey what happened in the dream space, especially if we wake up in the dream and it feels realer than real. And some of the colors look like more intense than anything we've seen here. And some of the beings we interact with feel like these are not humans, and they're real. And you can come out of that whole experience like, what the heck just happened? And to me, it feels like I've been in touch. When it happens to me, I haven't done research in this. In other words, I haven't collected lots of stories from people, but I am an experiencer. So what I've got to draw from is my experience, not books I've read, not people I've interviewed. And in my experiences, absolutely, I'm connecting with what I'd call higher, I don't know what else to call them, higher dimensional beings. and and in a way that they can see me. It's sort of like they know who I am, and very much like that thing of looking at the post-it pad, like they can see everything. They can see all the memories. I'm like an open book to them. That's why I would say, if you're asking, well, how do I know they're higher dimensional? Because of that. So there's a telepathic situation as well as very orderly awareness. But what's amazing to me is the level of respect that's can be granted there as well. And it feels like it's so honest. It's such a place of great integrity, honesty, and love for me, to be in that state. But I have to also add that when I'm in that state, I'm aware that I'm aware of my own sovereignty. So it feels like I'm traveling through what I might call an astral realm. So I'm not only okay, I should back up again. I'm aware of the state that you're describing. I also intentionally sometimes, not every day, but rather often, I suppose, go into what I would call astral realms, which to me are they're very similar. It's hard for me to distinguish tell the difference, except that when I'm in the frozen state, sleep paralysis, sometimes that would be a matter where beings come to me and invite me on expeditions. Whereas if I go into an intentional state, then I'm the one with a quest or I've got something in mind. In both cases, though, I'm consistently keeping a level of my own sovereignty. I don't know where this came from. It's because that's an obvious question. Well, where'd that come from? I don't know. Um, maybe just soul experience or something. So there's a level of my own expectation that there will be a level of respect granted and offered, and I'm expecting quite a lot, is what I'm saying. And because of my expectation, it seems things go accordingly. And well, I've been going on a lot, but I'm trying to explain. I am not researching it the way you do, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for that because I don't even know all of what you've found. I'd love to read your dissertation when that comes out. I'd love to read everything you're doing. I think it's super fascinating. I just have my own experiences, which are pretty amazing as they are, but I think it's a great field of inquiry. I think that's the direction that we're going to learn. Who are we really? How is it that functional beings know who we are so clearly? How do I get called into projects? How do they train me? How do they know what I'm able to do better than I can and then teach me the next steps? How is that happening? Well, I don't know if you have all those answers, but those would be my questions.
Not all of them. I have some of them, not all of them, Cynthia. And I'd love to send you the link once it's live. It'll be in a couple of weeks, I'm sure. And I thank you as well for your honesty and your openness in terms of being an experiencer, because I know there are many people, perhaps some persons who are listening who don't share openly, who feel quite stigmatized and pressured not to kind of disclose their experiences. So it's very much appreciated, your openness and authenticity as well with sharing.
Yes.
Uh, and I'm also thinking then, okay, so can we then reality shift, do you think, to that dimension at will? What are your thoughts there?
I'm learning how to do things. Like I said, I feel like I'm being. I notice like this looks like a training program. Like I'm just observing what's happening in it, and it doesn't always happen when I'm asleep. Sometimes I'll get called in. So yeah, it seems like we are definitely capable of doing a lot more than we think we can do. I don't even know what we're fully capable of. I was doing my best to explore the what if of it in my new book, the Mandela Effect and its society, with parallels between quantum physics and then what I'm expect, and then some of the things I've seen glimpses of that I feel like I'm getting brought into training. If you wonder what's the training like, it's just I'll be notified of a situation on the planet. Some people get like you'll hear people get precognition. It's like a precognition, but instead, it's today we're talking about timelines, right? Like you can choose, and so it's showing me timeline choices, which might be a natural event unfolding, like a 9.9 earthquake outside. At first, it showed me it'll be hitting Juneau, Alaska. That's a populated area. And then the question was, is this okay? My answer is no, this is not okay. I do not live in Juneau, Alaska. I don't know anyone who does. That's not the point. Point is like, no, there's got to be a better place. And so suddenly I'm involved in this whole thing. And because I care about it, I don't know why I care, but I do. I care intensely about everyone. I can't help it. I'm like I don't know. I'm like a golden retriever or something. I just love everybody, all beings. So I'm just looking at the situation like, okay, we got to change this. And I didn't know it was possible to change it. That's the kind of when I say training, it's not like I'm in a classroom and they're teaching me things. It's sort of like maybe that's happening, but I sure don't remember that part. What's happening in real time is like this is real. It's happening right now, and I'm just working with the energies of the earth and the the force that needs to be released and just pushing it, moving it away from Juno, checking to see do we have a tsunami? We still have a tsunami. Keep pushing it, pushing it. Oh, it looks good. Park it here, and then sometimes I see these things in the news like later, not always. So I'm doing something with there's no reward, there's no guarantee, there's no indication of what's going on. That's why I call it training, because I'm thinking, what's going on? I'm learning that this is something humans can do, that we can look at a precognition and we can ask, is this okay? We can say no. And then we can, in our minds, move it with the timelines until we get it to a place where it doesn't impact. And I've been involved with a human political nuclear thing once too. And I hear that's what UFOs do. And I'm thinking, I am learning this. They are teaching me how to do what we are seeing that they are doing. They're like it's not just them, it can be us. We are the ones capable of doing these things. So these reality shifts, I feel like there's a physics behind it. That's what I was exploring in my new book, looking for like, is there any explanation for this? Kinda, sort of. Is it interdimensional? Yes. Does it tie in with sleep paralysis? Absolutely. To me, there are a lot of connections here. Yeah. So I'm fascinated by all the threads. I don't have all the answers, but it's very clear there's something big that we're being invited to do collectively.
And what does this have to do with there's been a lot of discussion recently about non-human intelligence, contact, disclosure, extraterrestrials,
Yeah.
entity. How does it fit in?
Well, when I visited some of the indigenous lands, like the Navajo Nation, and I've been off the beaten trail, so I went with a friend, MJ Zimmerman, and she'd been working with the chief of the indigenous tribe there, and so we sort of had permission in that sense. So I'm out in the middle of nowhere, just the occasional cow, not that many cows, a lot of cactus, a lot of dry ground. And I brought a sacred offering of water from California, which is another part of the United States. So I had the intention that I would share that in meditation. My friend MJ showed me a rock that had two handprints side by side. One's very clearly human, the other is very clearly not human. And I was at a conference of physicists. It was started by David Bohm with Leroy Little Bear and some linguists. And so it's called, back when they were doing this, it was called the language of spirit. And so the idea was bring quantum physicists together with indigenous elders from around the world, every single continent, with linguists to find out how do they see the world. And in the process of going to these gatherings, I was meeting people that said, oh, our grandparents always talked to the star people. I said, really? Did you see like a UFO or a spaceship? Like, I just saw grandpa, he'd be standing over by that rock over there. And then the star person would just be there. It's just like he's there. Grandpa and I said, was this a big deal? Like, no, not a big deal. Grandpa would just talk to him. These are people. And so I'm looking at the handprints side by side. I'm looking and I'm remembering, like, these are people I'm talking to. They've talked to these star people. And I'm seeing the imprint in the stone. It's very ancient. I don't know how old it is, but the fingers that are not human have sort of a triangular ridge to them. And the finger is still 5 fingers, but they're longer, skinnier, and they've got this sort of an indentation from a, like a, where, the corner of a oval wall or something. It's sharp. It's like, what is that? And it's very cool. So it gives you a very definite, distinctive feeling sense. Like, what does that tell you when you're sight when you have your two hands like that? It feels like we are one, like family. The message was very clear that I could feel. So anyway, so I would say that in this time of recognizing non-human intelligences, if we look back to our ancient records all the way back tens of thousands of years, we're going to see in the writing on the walls, literally, those are star family. And that's basically, it's sort of like been covered up. I think it's been the powers of our governments didn't want us to be aware of that. They didn't want us to acknowledge that. Usually, these star beings do not interfere directly. It seems like they're not exerting an oppressive presence, or they seem more like Star Trek. In other words, with they'll be there for guidance. I feel like they're very loving toward humanity, very supportive, and very concerned that humanity sometimes is acting a bit crazy and not very empathetic or respectful toward ourselves, toward our own human family, and toward our relatives on the planet, the plants and animals of this beautiful earth, and the whole thing being quite conscious, quite sentient. And so I'm mentioning the indigenous perspective because I love it. I love the way that respect is there for the four-leggeds, the two-leggeds, the ones who walk and crawl and fly and swim. And so that, and also the plant kingdom, those are our family too. I love that because it feels like now we're getting to a shared awareness that non-human intelligence, that's the plants, those are the fish, those are the birds, and our star family as well, that has been honored and recognized for millennia. And I think it's only been covered up recently. I think that's, if you wonder what's going on, I know people that have been part of these reverse engineering projects. So they have firsthand witnessed what you call anti-gravity, and they've witnessed 0 point energy. And to me, it looks clear that there are organizations in the government that have been keeping that for national security purposes, but I think that time has come to an end. So it looks like probably the next few years it will become widely accepted. So I know that's a lot, but that's what it looks like to me. And I've had some direct dealings through the sleep paralysis, lucid dreaming, but awakening in the dream. That's how I've mostly connected with these non-human intelligences. And that's how I feel like that's why they're training me. They're showing me you also can stop a nuclear. It doesn't matter about nuclear weapons. You can stop them. We're doing it. If you wonder, what are we doing it with? It's that higher dimensional level. It's like a game. Whoever is the highest level of observer can change everything that's being observed. And we're starting to see that with physics. We're getting proof that two observers at the same place and same time can see two different things. And so it's giving us, if you listen to this really closely and you look really closely at what this means, then it's just a game of go up, 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 up until you're the observer who's observing that everything's okay. And to be able to do that is, if you're wondering who gets the privilege of that, I think we grow into it, and it comes from our own intentionality. So wishing the best for all concerned, which I do, and loving everyone as if they're another myself, which I do. If you want to be like, if you want the sort of things I'm experiencing, I've been doing that for decades, and I believe it's visible at the higher dimensional levels. That's how I get called in. They're like, oh, this one's clean. She really wishes the best for everyone. Okay, bring her in. We're gonna show her how to do this. We can all do that right now. And that's what's exciting to me about the Mandela effect and about looking at what is the highest level of what's happening in a situation like sleep paralysis. How good can that get? What can we get from that? Those are good questions, and I don't know all the answers.
So sleep paralysis, then, what you're saying for some is a direct channel, a an environment where two-way communication can take place, where messages and training, as you say, can happen as well, quite consciously, and you'll wake up remembering and fully understanding what you received in that state?
It's possible. It's challenging. I'm not going to sugarcoat it because it bypasses. I think humans were hardwired with fight or flight. And so it's sort of like usually if we get frozen, and if it's not us doing the freezing, that can feel like, oh, that's a trigger. And it can create a sort of panic, but that does serve to wake us up. I'm not the expert here. I've only had my own experiences. So I feel a little bit awkward. And I haven't read what you've written. Like, oh my gosh, I am work operating at a serious, or maybe that's good. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm the complete novice here. Like, all I've had in my own experiences. Oh, good heavens. Anyway, I'm sorry. So I say something stupid, forgive me. But so the fight or flight thing to me, what it felt like was it woke me up big time, like, woo, and now I'm frozen, like I can't do anything. The invitation, if I can remember it, is to get into a flow state. If I can remember it, if I can remember it. And boy, is there that, oh, there's a panic, I'll tell you. Now the guides will bring things through gently. They're very kind to me. They're not trying to panic me, even though the things I see, it can be like, well, this is nerve-wracking at some point. When I wake up, wake up in my daily life the next day, it's like that was freaky, yes. But they guided me through it gently. When I look at the way that it went, it was pretty darn good. I was able to get into a flow state. So from going from freeze to flow, I think that's what they're encouraging. Can you grow? It's the plant growing. It's like frozen is like the seed waiting, waiting, waiting. And then when it feels the sunshine and the light, then can it get to a flow, then open and grow? Yes. And I can too. And so I feel like that's what I feel like is happening. And now I forgot your original question. It's sorry.
It's all right. Just to say that your experience mirrors exactly what a lot of other people are experiencing in terms of sleep paralysis. I think that for some, though, they're stuck in that panic kind of fear state. And that can be so frightening, so terrifying and traumatic for many. And I think that's one of the good reasons why we're able to have this conversation quite openly and say and let people know that that's not the end, that's not really what the whole experience is about, and that it can transform and it can blossom, and it's about getting over that kind of panic, that fear, and moving gently with support of these kind of different forms of non-human intelligences that can really take you on some most amazing experiences and visits and things that you'll be able to do. Because I think also what you're suggesting, Cynthia, is that we are more than what we see here. We are more than just this physical flesh and bone. And your work is kind of showing us that we can tap into our larger selves. Is that right?
I love the way you just summarized that. It's so beautiful. I do agree with that. Yes, we are much bigger than meets the eye. I certainly feel that way. And with these sleep paralysis experiences, where I then have the opportunity to wake up in a lucid dream and participate and remember, like, okay, flow. It's kind of like remember to breathe, remember to flow, remember that I am bigger than what I think I am. I'm like, how did they find me? Like, why are they dealing with me? I'm an average person. Like, why am I getting brought into this whole thing? But in 1987, I went through, this is what I'm referring to. I went through some big sleep paralysis, and then I felt like I was being interviewed for a job I didn't apply for to assist with a project I'd never heard of, which didn't have a name. Everything was telepathic, but I give it a name just to summarize what it was about, which was the Earth human is about the human species mind, not the brain, but the way it's like a morphogenic field redesign because we're getting an opportunity. And starting in 1987, it's like there's going to be a big change on the planet. To get ready, we can all bring in this new way of thinking for all of us. And then project. So again, that's the global human mind redesign project. I'm putting the words there. They never use the words. I don't know They never said we're the Galactic Federation. What did they look like? They look like aliens, just all kinds. And I was chosen to be quality assurance. Really freaked me out a lot because I was by day working at a bank as an information tech professional with computers, you know, project management skills. And then by night, every night for several weeks, I'd be falling asleep and then waking up into this other second job that I'm doing all night long. And first, I went to an orientation learning about this project, and it was explained humans are very beautiful. They're gems of the universe, and the mindset that humans bring is the way that they can go through an evolutionary phase optimally. And so, for this purpose, now there were no words. I'm just putting words here. For this purpose, we will now come together to offer our own ideas of how we can increase the empathy for humans. So it's increase empathy, decrease, I'll just call it crazy, damp down the crazy factor, less crazy, more empathy. And here's something tricky. They wanted to keep the creativity without boosting the crazy. Usually, the more creative you get, the more likely there's a tendency somehow. And so we wanted creative, but not to make it crazy. So only the creative without the crazy, and then definitely more empathy in all the designs. And so my only job was pass or fail the designs that they handed me. But I would have to actually meet the teams, and you'd think like, oh, big deal. Well, here's why it's a big deal. The ones I would like to meet, they look all friendly and sweet, and they all pass. That's good. And the ones I'm failing, guess what they look like? They do not look like they're human. They do not understand humans. So they were the ones that look scary, what you might call reptilians, really scary. And beetle things, they did not understand. Those are the ones I was failing. And then I have to fail them, and there's no way I can cover it up or be nice about it because they're all telepathic. So it's like, you failed. And then they want to know, why did I fail? Like, oh my God. I'm sorry. Okay, but now that was 1987. I feel like those are my friends, and I feel like and they didn't have hard feelings. You might think they didn't. No, they were taking my word. It's like this was a fail, and they took it as that's a fail. And I would explain why. That no human could possibly stay sane in this mind does this does not meet all criteria. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. It's so funny now. It was horrifying at the time. So yeah, I think with these, that's the reason. If you wonder why am I so passionate about this, about all these topics, is because for me, they're quite personal and they're quite real, and I directly feel the love from like I just feel like look at this, that all these different beings care that much about humanity, that they put that much of themselves into this, and then they care about what. I don't think I'm the only human that was testing it. I keep thinking other people will talk about this. I haven't heard it, but there must have been others. I can't be the only one. Well, maybe there aren't that many others, but still, there's got to be at least one other person that was like, I was there too. Yay. Well, anyway, but but they took it to heart. They care. They care about us. They care about what works for us, and they want to make it better, and they want to be here for us at this huge time of human evolutionary transformation. Obviously, it's happening. And after the 1987, I thought I would tell my husband like this is crazy stuff going on, and feel like I'm on spaceships at night. He's like, "What's going on? Where?" And I said, "Where are they?" And I said, "Well, I point to the dark sky before dawn, and I'd say they're there." I knew right they were to the east of my house, and like, but he'd said where, and I said, "Well, they are interdimensional, and they can. It's like everything's much bigger on the inside, and they can totally collapse, and it doesn't show up at all." Talk about stealth. They don't have to show up like anything we could see. And I sounded like a nutcase. So he was the only person I talked to at the time. The team, as the project wrapped up, they told me they wanted me to promise that I would tell everyone about this. And I said, no way, not right now. I'm a project manager at Citibank. No, I'm not going to talk about this. This sounds like totally nutty. And there's no evidence that any of this is happening. I'm not going to talk about this. Okay, but then after that, then I started hearing about the Indigo Kids. And I was like, those are our mind designs. And then the Crystal Kids, the Rainbow Kids. It's like the different ways of seeing things. The Indigo Kids that already knew what was going on. Yeah, because they've got some of that telepathy and the shared conscious awareness. Right. but it's available for all of us. So you don't need to be born after 1987. For anyone who's open to receiving that and ready to evolve, you've got your own path, and everybody's been factored into that. So we're all the beneficiaries. Remember, it's not the brain, it's the mind. It's that morphogenic field. So it's a pretty exciting time. And it took me decades to feel like now I'm okay and cool with that 1987. And it's interesting to me, 1987, because some people say that's when Nelson Mandela died on Robben's Island. So I'm looking at that time frame, like, was that significant? I think it was. Something's going on there. So I'm
Wonderful.
sorry, I'm all over the place today.
Don't worry. I mean, that's fine. That's amazing. That's incredible. So let's say in the next 5 to 10 years, where do you see your research going?
Yeah, I'd love to look at the levels of conscious agency we're talking about. To me, that's the key, and understanding that dimensionality. I mentioned that we're now looking at through mathematical models of our human minds solving problems. We start like at 3 dimensions, then 4, and then we sort of build on it. They can see this in the way humans think, 5D, 6D, 7D. I think they're going to be bringing that into the artificial intelligence systems, most likely. Um, so it's extremely important that some of the same criteria we used for human mind design are also considered and part of artificial intelligence mind design. So that's a big deal. I'm not planning to personally be involved in the implementation of it. However, I do run into it on that sort of, whatever you want to call it, that level of conscious agency where I'm operating a little higher than normal. I do run into it there. And so I plan to continue the work I'm doing one-on-one with people, but then also do some research about these levels of conscious agency. And if you're looking within the body and you're saying, well, where are these 7 we're working with? I see the analogous levels in our chakra system, that there's the 7th chakra, the crown, the 6th at the forehead, the 5th at the throat. And you can also see that you got levels of conscious agency with the neurons in the brain. That's now definitely verified. Neurons in the heart. So that's another level of conscious agency. And guess what? We've got neurons in the gut. So it's well known that we've got at least 3 brains, physical brains in the body. So now when I'm talking about these energy centers, it's like, oh, that's not too big a stretch, because we know if you've got the 3 brains, the brain in your head, the cardiac brain, and then the gut brain, then it's also clear that that makes sense that we'd have these 7 levels. Humans are now growing into stepping into the fullness of those 11 dimensions that we've been acknowledged that we're capable of dealing with them. So it looks to me that we'll be physically embodying that. So if you're wondering, where do I look for? I look for the research in scientific research, but I'm also at the same time looking back to Rudolf Steiner, Neville Goddard, Carl Jung, and you may think that's nuts. They didn't write about this. Not yet. When it is time, we'll be on a timeline where they did write about it. And that's when I'll be able to draw from their research. And so I'm the one kind of that's pulling these timelines in. Like, come on, Carl Jung, come on, Neville Goddard, and Rudolf Steiner, and all the others. I'm not ruling out other people. Everybody in the past that was writing about this, I would love to bring your ideas together and to share it so that humanity can get a better sense of what are we doing when we move into these higher levels of dimensional consciousness. What does that feel like? And what abilities does it give us? It has responsibilities too. So we're going to be moving into a level where it's more important than ever that we care about everyone as if they are another or myself. That's going to become increasingly important. It'll become kind of a go, no go for the evolution path. So it looks like it's extremely important. And I think probably this whole thing with the sleep paralysis has been one of the most important doorways by which people can start experiencing, how to get into that flow state, get into that higher level of beingness. Like, you're so much more than you think you are. And that's exactly what I'll keep writing about.
Wonderful, wonderful. I could just keep talking to you, Cynthia, for hours and hours and hours, because I'm finding it so, so interesting. But we're becoming a bit out of time now, so I'm starting to wind down, and wondered if there's anything, a final truth that you'd like to leave listeners with.
Yeah, I think the most important thing of all at this time and pretty much any time that we're alive is I touched on it briefly earlier. I want to flesh it out and explain what I meant. There's a physicist, John Archibald Wheeler, that he's brilliant, contemporary of Einstein. He talked about black holes, white holes, it from bit, which we're now using in computers. The part that I want to emphasize now is he brought up this idea of the participatory universe. And he had the idea that when you ask nature a question, nature always answers. And you might think like, okay, well, that sounds very hypothetical and philosophical. How does that tie in with me? Because this is where it gets important. We need to start practicing the art of only asking the questions we genuinely wish to live the answer to. So it's like a martial art mindset. We're not going to be distracted anymore and ask questions we don't care about. Because what if it's true that whatever you think in question form, like I wish that my curtains were longer, then the next day they are, and then I'm annoyed. I forgot that I'd even thought that. Now I'm annoyed. Like now I have to fix the rods. And then, wait a minute, that's what I wanted. Happen. It's been this way for 20 years. Okay, so the questions we're asking, we want to train ourselves, not like, oh, that went wrong, that went wrong. These things come in threes. What's the next? Don't ask what's the next thing that goes wrong. It's like cancel, cancel. How good can it get? I'm just saying, if you just put that little how good can it get into everything, like, well, we've had two disasters, this political disaster, that political thing, this war there, et cetera, et cetera. You don't want to say like now it comes in threes. You want to say, how good can this get? So given that it looks like that's happening, how good can it get for all concerned? Not just for me. It has to be a win-win-win thing, or it's not going to be ultimately any good at all. But if people are having trouble wrapping their mind around all of that, then just start with how good can it get. It's okay to start with how good can it get for you. To the degree that you can share that goodness, it's going to get better. I guarantee it. So the more you can share it so it's the best for all concerned, then you're really on the win-win-win side where nobody's clawing their way to the top and nobody's stomping on anybody else. And that is possible. And so that's the challenge is asking only the questions that you genuinely would love to live the answers to. And don't even let your mind go down those nasty rabbit holes where you don't want to deal with that. Only go to the places where you'd love to see, yes, I'd love to experience this.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. That's so beautiful. So, if people want to find out a bit more about you and look into your work, where can they reach you, Cynthia?
My website is the best one. It's realityshifters.com. That's the best way to find me, is what I meant. Not the best website. Maybe for some people. And then I'm on YouTube and my blog is currently on Substack. It's free, but the resources I was mentioning were on my website with the event that I'll be at this year in August in Colorado. A weekend retreat. That's my only in-person appearance this year with Paula Harris and Julian Chameroy. He's from Paris, France, and she's originally from Italy, from Rome, Italy. So it's a very international group, and we'll be doing CE5 viewings, which is working with non-human intelligence. So it's all about what we're talking about today,
Wow.
except not so much perhaps the sleep paralysis part. So that's all, it's on my website, realityshifters.com, and you can sign up for my newsletter there, check out the books, and yeah, just see what's going on.
Wonderful. Great. And thank you once again, Cynthia. And it was such a pleasure to be speaking with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila, for all you're doing. And like I said, I'm really glad that you're publishing what you're doing and looking forward to seeing that. The more you write, the better, I think, for all of us. So thank you for doing what you're doing and these interviews too.
Great. Thank you again. Bye-bye.